I was asked early on by a colleague, my mustache was getting a little out of hand. They asked me, are you going to be speaking about how you invented the telephone? Said no, and somebody else said, you look like you should be on the back of a $5 bill. But thank you very much. It's incredible to have these things, and these events are critical to the way that we connect to each other, and it's an absolute honor to be here. So imagine, if you will, here we go. Okay, imagine, if you will, trying to solve a Rubik's Cube by drawing it, or trying to learn how to tie a knot without a rope. It's really hard to do. It's hard to do because we need a tactile connection back to the object that we're holding, that we're learning about, in order to complete the cognitive process. This has been a through line in my work and the work that you're seeing on the screen right now. Historically, people in the non-physical arts have had a connection back to the physical world. Poets want to feel the words come out of their mouth. They want to hear them pass across their ears. Writers lay out their stories on cue cards, pin them up against the wall so they can see the tale physically move in front of them. And painters know that there's a difference between feeling the idea and feeling it on a page with a pencil, but then the rubber hits the road when the oil hits the canvas, so to speak. After high school, I worked as a contractor. I worked as a construction worker. I welded not well. I plumbed poorly. I poured concrete countertops, and I made straw bale houses. I just wanted to be connected to the people who made things. I just wanted to have conversations with people who were connected to the physical world. These things were important to me. After that, I was lucky enough to go to architecture school. I was surrounded by an academy of people who fastidiously document the design world around us, our constructed world. We talked about buildings, we drew about buildings, we read about buildings, and we thought about buildings a lot. But I noticed that we weren't often asked to make buildings. We were rarely given the opportunity to physically make something. This idea that making is somewhat disconnected from thinking has been talked about recently. Matt Crawford, in his book, Shop Classes Soulcraft, talks about the fact that shop classes are being rooted out of high schools across North America, where once you could learn about welding, carpentry, and mechanics right next to physics and geography and social sciences. In fact, making was a science. Now, as I was thinking about this, I started to research whether or not making things can make us feel better. And I noticed that, in general, your rates of depressions are sometimes lower in the trades than they are with people who are stuck at a desk. For me, the most rewarding times of my life have been spent on a rooftop, in the rain, pulling sheets up, frantically trying to screw them together before the storm comes in. Working together as a team, working together, solving a problem in real time. That's what helped make me. Now, and you probably know it as well. If any of you have ever put together a piece of flat pack furniture after a long, shouty, stressful, and divorce-inspiring Saturday afternoon, you looked out into your living room and said, "Not today, Billie bookcase, no. Not today." This is the thing that drives me. My work as a production designer is to set the stage for people to tell the stories of our lives. It's to create a place for actors where they can interact and share their tales. In this journey, I've been able to work with incredible people around the world, brilliant people. Scenic painters, carpenters, directors, writers, cinematographers, grips, and gaffers. The most interesting group of people that I've been able to work with work in the field of CGI, post-production, computer-generated images. If any of you have ever seen an atmosphere? We got a postie in the crowd. If any of you have ever seen an atmosphere you can barely imagine or a robot taller than the sky, you've seen their work. It's breathtaking. We work with CGI all the time. We try to work with them and we try to beat them. In this campaign, we were tasked by the prospect from Team Canada for this year's Olympics to create environments where the athletes could live their dreams. These young ladies, they ran through the moguls that we built by hand in the lever factory in downtown Toronto. Hayley Wickenheiser and her teammates stood on these pedestals covered in gold paint. They were shiny for days. But it was easier to do it physically. It was easier to build it and let post round out the edges than it was to just make it in a computer. Now, people ask me, as a production designer, are you worried about the day that your job becomes replaced? The day that catches up quickly when all we're down to is a black screen, a green screen, and a pair of VR goggles? I'm not at all. Because I think that as our technology develops, so does our need to connect back to the physical world. One of the most rewarding opportunities I've ever had was to work with Sick Kids Hospital. These kids go through things every day with their families and the people around them that we can barely imagine. They're superheroes. They're actual heroes. And we wanted to make sets and environments that let them be superheroes. We built this tower out of recycled medical equipment. Wheelchairs and crutches and balloons. We blew her hair with a fan. And post built out the background. In this clip, these kids actually pulled down a wall. We built a wall out of bricks, not real bricks, fake bricks. In fact, one of the mothers leaned over to me during the set and said, "Just be careful, they're already sick." But these kids had the opportunity to do something where they didn't even have to act. They could just be the people they were. Now, through this work, we try to push the limits of what we can do practically. The most rewarding thing I've ever had happen was when somebody asked a director in something that we made who your post company was, who did the CGI. And they get to tell them it was, oh, we did it real. We did it in camera. One example of this was during this year's Olympics, one of their main sponsors asked if we could build a screen out of snow. The first special effects company I contacted in Calgary where we shot it said, "How are you going to do that?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I don't know." I said, I think we can do it. I feel like we can do it. Like I have an inkling. And if you suspect you can get close to it, then you can start to build it. I mean, after all, human beings, we made fire. Canadians, we will control the snow. This is squarely in our wheelhouse. The next special effects company I called, they had 4 commercial snowmakers sitting in their shed. We brought the snowmakers out to the foothills of the Kananaskis mountain range, and we triangulated them and created a plume of snow. We buttressed this with a set of Ritter fans, which is essentially an airplane propeller on wheels, to keep the incoming prevailing winds from the mountains from blowing it away. And then that morning, as the sun came up over the mountains, we put a 20K lumen projector in the back of a van and the cinematographer on the back of a snowmobile driven by a man named Chevy. And they drove back and forth until the image locked in place, watching Team Canada win the gold. The screen was 100 feet long and 60 feet tall. The next example of this is the work that myself and my team have done with Rube Goldberg machines. Early on in my career, I had the gift and the curse of being asked to build a Rube Goldberg machine. It's the worst thing that ever happened to me. If any of you have tried to make one of these, you know it's like trying to get a room full of cats to stand in one place and then move over to the right as a group and then move over to the left. They never do that. It's the same thing with these. Rube Goldberg machine is asking a group of materials to behave in a way that they might do, but they don't want to do as a group. I found that as a designer, the best way to approach this is to give the machines back to the builders, to lay out the obstacles in broad strokes, to say, we want to have a small reaction here and a big reaction here. I'd like to have a ladder over there and a pile of paint cans and a rope and some t-shirts over there. And then let the builders take over the rest of the work, because they know more about it than I do. I'm just getting in their way. All of this work added up to the design and the creation and the filming of a Rube Goldberg machine in Portugal this summer. In downtown Lisbon, on one city block, we made a machine that had 82 separate reactions, stretched out over a course of 1/10 of a kilometer. It featured 2 ladders, a box of oranges, a dog, 4 t-shirts, and an old lady driving a car. The last project I'm going to show you is for a tequila company. The company asked us if we could talk about and show how smooth their product is. Using a process called Cymatics, which is basically driving sound through liquid, we showed a variation of wave patterns in the liquids. Using a car audio subwoofer and a waterproof amplifier and a wave generator, we created a series of experiments where we moved the liquid around in new ways. We 3D printed an armature that would hold a glass above the speaker that would create a separation between the liquid itself and the sound wave below it. Now, I had to take university calculus 4 times to get into architecture school. I failed it twice, I left once, and the 4th time, I nailed it. But at the end of this project, I knew a lot about what a sine wave looks like. Now, in all of this work, I've had the absolute pleasure and the honor to be able to not only research it, but also to teach. I teach architecture at the John H. Daniels University of Toronto, Faculty for Architecture, Landscape, and Urban Design. It's been one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. In this building, I write and coordinate the first-year design studio and the 4th-year undergraduate studio, design build studio. It's an opportunity for students to build the things that they design. It's a 2-week course where students are allowed to design and then work with professionals and people from the community to build something that they drew. In the first-year program, the first class they take is called How to Design Almost Anything. And the first project is called Making. The students are asked to draw the space of their dreams using a light tool that they have to build. The tool can be made out of anything. You can build it out of trash, and some of them do. You can wrap LEDs around a coat hanger. Students fill up garbage bags with Christmas lights and shove flashlights into shoe boxes. But you have to make something that creates a light pattern. Using the tool, students draw the space around them, the most beautiful space you can imagine, as though they're standing in the center of it. It could be the house they grew up in or the Taj Mahal. This is an image from the project. And the coolest thing about this project is when students' friends ask them, what software did you draw that in? They say we didn't. We took it with a long exposure camera. We drew it with our hands. Now, through all of this work, I've had incredible experiences. I've been able to meet people around the world smarter than me. I've learned so much from people I never knew I would ever meet. And it was all based out of just wanting to make things. It's still all I really want to do. I just want to make stuff, contribute back to the built environment around us. The great and Pritzker Prize-winning architect Glenn Murcutt once said that, to paraphrase him, life is not just the big moments, the weddings, the celebrations, the graduations. But in fact, life is made up of the small moments, the things we make. It's making your bed. It's making a meal. It's fixing a door. That these things we make us. Thank you very much.